So we should be live now. Hello everyone. I'm just getting the Windows client machine ready. Okay, so I finished the installation of Windows 10 there, I just haven't gotten through the first startup, which is exactly where I want it. So, I'm just gonna let people join in first. And I will actually see if I can set this up to show the actual server. Would be nice. Not sure. Let's see. Scale. There we go. Just gonna let people join in first. Since there was a few people who were interested in seeing the stream. How are you all doing? Good, good. Well, we'll fun to see if Chris actually has time to join in as a viewer. So anyway, we're going to go through the setup and everything. The only thing yeah, there's no cross stream at all. So we're going to go through the whole setup of Zentyal, but we're going to skip the setup part of the Windows client because I'm pretty sure most of you have already set up Windows a bajillion times already and already know the procedure for that. So I figured I would get that ready and everything. So this is Zentyal booted into a BIOS mode because I'm not even sure if they have UEFI support, but they should have because they're using Ubuntu as a base for their system. But it didn't have a UEFI boot on the ISO file from what I saw. But the good thing is that they do provide a repository so you can install this on a normal Ubuntu system. Anyway, we're going to delete the whole disk. And oh, I just remembered I actually need to force reset this because I am Norwegian. I rather want to have, let's see, key map. I want to have the Norwegian key map. Otherwise I will be fumbling around with where's that key? So English, and I am nowhere near any of those locations, so other. I'm in Europe, and I am in Norway. Yes, United States. Use the locale from United States, just makes it easier. And it makes it so that I don't have to deal with half Norwegian, half English menus. Okay, so I have two Ethernet interfaces on this virtual machine. It is not necessary. However, since this isn't a virtual machine running on QEMU, and the first interface is a bridge connection, which I can't access with my host machine. So the second one is a host-only connection that I can use to actually get to the web interface with my machine. So we want to use ETH0 for the actual connection. What should the host name be? We'll just keep it as Zentyal. What's the username for the account? sysadm, that's usually what I do. Choose a very complicated password that is very memorable for you. So for me, you can go for that. And is this time zone correct? Yes. So, where can you get Zentyal? Well, they have their website here, Zentyal.com, and their whole aim is to be the Windows server for Linux, essentially a drop-in replacement for Windows Server. And they have existed for over a decade. I actually started using their server system when it was called eBox, which is ancient at this point. And they've always had the ability to be a Active Directory, well, primary domain controller in a network where you have only Windows clients. You have had the ability to connect it to connect up to your Linux computers to it too, and Mac computers too, but they not long ago, like I think last year or 2 years ago, they completely removed OpenLDAP from their system and rely solely on Samba 4, which lets them have the full compatibility of Active Directory. Just out of curiosity, yeah, that's fine. The Windows client is just ready for going through the first setup, which I'm going to show a fun thing of because it's kind of pointless. But yeah, the setup for Zentyal takes a bit of time because I think they fetch some of their packages from the network and some of them from the installation media. And I could also just do view and scale display on this one too. Makes it easier for the stream to see, and I'm not going to bother cropping out anything because most of the stuff we're going to do is through the web browser anyway. Oh, don't worry, OG. I also got to try out the Steam link that Chris sent me. I just hooked it up today, and it works phenomenally. I love it. And I now have a space to actually put up my Raspberry Pi, which is just literally sitting around doing nothing at the moment, and I really want to use it for something. And I'm thinking of having it as a retro console because, like, I already have over 5,000 games on this, so I may as well use it as a retro console. Yes, we wanted to restart services without asking. In a production environment, it's not something I would recommend, but you would have to restart them anyway, and then probably restart the computer anyway. I just wanted to check something. Ah, nice. My webcam died. Because I was fiddling around with it. Can I... I guess not. My camera is dead. I will just hide my camera then, I guess. Yeah. It is dead. I could go and plug it out and plug it back in again, I think, but it won't help. At least I have audio, yes. Yeah, Sparky, I was considering just unplugging the webcam and plugging it back in again. I do have a spare webcam, but I haven't actually plugged it up. How are you doing, Sparky? Finish the installation. Yes, we want to finish the installation. I had a shower not long ago because I've been doing some plumbing today. The shower drain was clogged, so I had to fix that. So wasn't pretty. So yeah, I've never actually seen this boot work, but if you just press down, you see the status, and then press down again, it's fine. I never actually seen this Plymouth theme actually work without you actually switching. So yeah, it's finished. It's finishing the installation. So I'm just gonna leave this at this. And Sparky, you've gone through a lot of things. Have you ever heard about Zentyal? Just curious. Have you ever heard about Zentyal? Yeah. And if you have heard about it, have you ever used it? Okay. Well, if you didn't catch the beginning of the stream, they're focusing on essentially being a drop-in replacement for Windows Server. Essentially. So they have existed for over a decade, but they started out under a different name called eBox. And I have actually used them for over 10 years. Because why go through the hassle of having a Windows server and then having to get a licensing server to deal with CAL licenses for your domain? When you can just set up a Linux server with as a Active Directory and just not have to pay any licensing fees. And they, in the early stages, they actually used OpenLDAP with some Samba voodoo to make it work. But recently they have moved over to just using Samba 4. And like, let's take a look at the features, because honestly, this is actually done. Anyway, we can actually have a look at this. So, what they have is like you can replace Microsoft Active Directory seamlessly. You can manage GPOs with the RSAT tools, because if you're setting up this server, you're already going to have Windows clients in your network. So why make a tool to manage GPOs when you can just manage them from a client machine? And you can get a dedicated mail server, and it's supposed to work with ActiveSync. I've never actually set this up myself because I've never had any use for it. You can set up a proxy, which I also never use because I use pfSense. But I use the DNS and DHCP part of this, but we're not going to actually use that in this. But yeah, you can do a lot of with this. Like you have Jabber and other things too. But if you're going to download it, you just click on Community and you download the Development Edition, which is like all their early stuff. Like essentially, it's their beta branch, and that one is the free one. But they provide all the source code and things like that. So directory and domain, mail, gateway, infrastructure. Like you can run virtual machines on this too and manage them from the same interface. It's actually quite sweet. So I'm actually not interested in setting this up here. All I want... Yes, this is a free server. I want ifconfig and get my local address here. So I'm on 194. Fair enough. So let's actually open this. 194.8443. Address. Okay. I forgot that I have to go through this on the local machine first. Because they block all incoming connections by default. So the login is sysadm, because we actually made this user automatically during the installation. And welcome to the initial setup. We want to continue. And what we're interested in setting up is a domain controller and file sharing. I mean, if you want the firewall or a DHCP server or anything else, you just select that. Like, you have free radius, you have Clam AV antivirus, which you can run checks on anything that comes through your firewall and things like that. Mail filter, webmail. And for virtualization manager, they actually use QEMU. So for the domain controller, we will need the network configuration. You will need that on literally everything. Firewall, DNS server, which we are not actually going to use the DNS server, because I'm going to show how to actually use this along with a Pi-hole. And you get the time server, and then you get the actual domain controller and file sharing. So now it's setting this up, and then it will be going through the initial configuration where I can select what interfaces are internal and which ones are external, which are mostly important for the firewall part, because everything is blocked at the moment. So for the firewall configuration, because both my things are. Oh, right. ETH1. I forgot that ETH1 has to be up for me to even access this address, because I can't access this address at all because of the bridge. I never used the intrusion sensing system because we already have that on a Cisco firewall at my other job. I never used it, but it's probably really good. Yeah. Personally, I don't like Cisco at all, but their firewalls are okay. But the configuration of them, oh, they're a pain. I personally prefer pfSense, but like the actual main firewall out to the internet is Cisco, and then we have a pfSense firewall behind that again for some more sensitive stuff. But yeah, when I was studying and I was a trainee and I got my final exam had one part where I had to set up a domain controller for a company, a company in air quotes, and I actually set up a Zentyal server, and I got high marks for setting up a Active Directory service on Linux just because of that. Okay, so here's the thing. Both of these are internal because I want to access the web interface from both of them. Usually you would have the one going to the internet set to external. But since both of these they're serving the same purpose, I'm setting them both to internal. And I want DHCP on, well, I could do static on this one. 192.168.199. Oops. 192.168.1.1. A domain name server 192.168.1.240. Okay, so kind of Active Directory server do you want? Do you want a additional domain controller, or do you want a standalone one? I want this one to be called I don't call it .lan because .lan rarely works on anything. I want to call it .local. And essentially what that does is that if I just try to ping my company without .local, I will still be able to ping it. And it will also show up without the .whatever at the end when you use it as a domain controller. So finish. Yeah, it would trigger the change of the actual host name, blah 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 blah. Create a new certificate. Yes, that's fine. Yeah, I just don't like the Cisco configuration interface. Like, it's cluttered and everything is just thrown on the screen without any rhyme and reason compared to pfSense. So let's see if we got an IP address now. Yeah, 10.1.1.109. So once this is done, I will actually see if I can gain access to that one. Congratulations, the Zentyal server is set up, so you can go to a dashboard and it will look like this. But I'm going to go into here and go to the host only connection for this, so that I can actually access it. So sysadm. So we have the... Are you actually able to see that fine, or shall I go back to the actual virtual machine window? Like, is this even readable for you all? Okay, well that's good. So now we can go to manage, and we will have a empty domain controller here. So I want to create a user, so I click on users and click plus, and I want to make a sysadmin account because I can't use sysadm. System administrator, and I want it to be in domain admins. And I can also create a test user. And not put them in a group at all. And they would just be a normal user. User templates, we can change the user quota for settings. And here is our bind names. We can also enable PAM, which makes all the accounts you make in the user and computers managing tab into an actual account on the host machine. And this is for if you're wanting to give them SSH access and things like that. I think it's also for if you have PAM authentication against this server for like Unix systems. I think that's also what it's used for, so you can have one place to manage everything. For a domain, this is the information we want my company. You can enable roaming profiles. I do not recommend doing that, because that means that all their settings are stored on the domain controller, and it's just going to take so much space. File sharing and DNS, we're not even going to use the DNS at all. We have logs, we have network, objects, several things here. Software management, components, we can even do system updates, which it's literally, all the packages are literally, all the updates are literally just Linux kernel headers and things like that. We have modules, we can turn them on and off here quite easily. You can do a configuration backup and make a backup file, download and restore that quite easily. But that also includes all your users and computers. Is there anything else? Yeah, you can add more admin accounts. You can change the host name and domain. And you also get a nice overview here. So now that we have the server set up, let's jump into our Windows client. So I want this to be in Norway as the region. I want to use the Norwegian keyboard, and it really annoys me that I can't just press N and get straight to it. I have to scroll to it. Thank you, Windows. Skip adding another keyboard. And yeah, setting up the Active Directory server on Linux takes so much shorter amount of time than setting it up on Windows, if you ask me. Like you have the initial installation, you answer a few questions, literally 3, and then you're good to go. Oh yeah, and the Zentyal installation was done on a normal spinning Rust hard drive, so it was relatively quick. Yeah, it's doing a reboot again. Oh joy. Just curious, is my camera working again? Nope, I'm still staring off into nothing. I mean, maybe can I flip this? Can I flip this? So it looks like I'm just let's see. Oh no. Really? Transform. There we go. I'm just looking. Okay, so here's the fun thing. If you set it up as an organization, right? You get the question if you want to join it into a Azure domain. So no, I want to join a domain instead. And they're asking me to set up. Yeah. I'm just looking at the installation going like, what? Okay, so the weird thing is here, and the weird thing here is that I said I wanted to join a domain, but it's asking me to set up a local account. Which makes no sense. I don't want a local admin account. I want... I don't want the local admin. Okay, right. This thing. Oh, no. Okay. Password. Empty. Skip. But yeah, it's like, hey, I want to join a domain. Okay, make a local admin account. I'm like, that's not what I asked for. Yeah, exactly. That's why you need it for safe mode. That's why they actually make you go through it. But it's like it's like, no, I want to join a domain instead. But they don't let you join the domain. They just make the account and just continue on as if it's like a home computer. So the option is completely redundant. I think the only thing it changes from the personal option and the organization option is that it doesn't start downloading all the crap. Like, it doesn't start downloading Candy Crush and all that. I think that's the only difference it makes. So if you have Windows Professional, yeah, OG. What it means is that if you need to use safe mode and you have a computer that is connected to a domain, you can't sign in with the domain accounts. So you need a local admin account. So yeah, but when you select go as an administrator, I don't think it actually starts downloading them instantly, so you can actually remove them. So anyway, we want to join a domain now. Windows isn't activated. Woohoo! I have no intentions of activating this. I'm not gonna throw away a license on it. So we want to go on accounts, access worker school, and connect. Yeah, I have Windows Pro too. But have you, when you set it up, did you choose that it was a personal computer, or did you choose that it was a computer that belongs to an organization? Because when you choose to choose that it's part of a organization and you choose I want to join a domain, it makes you still just make a local admin account, and I think that there's an extra trigger on it that makes it not start downloading Candy Crush and things like that, because if you look here, it's not downloading anything at all. It just says a great app is on its way, and I'm like, no, it doesn't do anything. Anyway, we go and set up a worker school account and join local domain, and it was no, my company dot local. And now you might see the problem you might face if you have a pi hole connected. Domain couldn't be found. So here's the extra step if you have a pi hole. If you have a pi hole, and this doesn't matter if you use it as a DHCP or anything, you still have to go into DNS and enable conditional forwarding. And I can't remember what the IP address on the Zentyal server was. 99, okay. So, IP of the router 168.199. Local domain name mycompany.local, and save. This is all you need to do. And with the conditional forwarding, I can now join the domain. And this is using my pi hole as the primary domain resolver, or DNS server, essentially. So if you have a pi hole, remember to actually point the conditional forwarding to your domain server. It's a neat trick, so you don't have to make a chain load of your domain controller being the DNS server and just forward requests to the pi hole. You can either do it, you can do it the other way around instead. Anything that goes to the domain gets sent straight to the domain DNS server, and everything that doesn't have anything to do with it goes to the pi hole. So sys admin and join. Add an account. I want this to be the administrator account. Next. And then we restart. Also, I am aware that my camera is dead. I just left it up there because I had that fantastic stare off into the distance. So I may as well look at the installation myself. Okay, so now at login we have my company / sysadmin. However, I want to try and sign into the test user, which what did I actually name that again? Was it just test? No, I actually named the test user. Okay, test user, and oh look, welcome test user. Hi. So now we're on the test user account. And as you saw, we didn't even make it. And if I look into here and on accounts, here we go, mycompany.local. So most people will probably ask, what about group policies? Well, we have the RSAT tools, which I actually need the sysadmin account for that. I can type, trust me. And we can also just actually remove the test. Actually, we can disable the account. Don't need to remove it. Okay, so what we will need is, well, I will just go to Google, RSAT, and remote server administration tools for Windows 10. Yes, that's what I want. And download, and we want which version of Windows did I even install? It's so long since I actually installed this. I installed it yesterday. Is it on about? Yes, it is. 1803. So I want that one. I wonder, can I actually... Yes, I want to install that. Display settings. Can I set the display to be a tiny bit bigger? No. No, I can't. Okay, well, anyway, I accept. While I'm at it, I can... no, I can just download Spice. Did I finish downloading? Yes, why not? So the reason we want the RSAT tools is because group policy editing and like the more advanced things of Active Directory, people are going to use the RSAT tools anyway. But yeah, since people are going to use the RSAT tools anyway, they just didn't bother at Zentyal to make tools for editing group policies and things like that. Because why waste time developing that when people are not going to use it? When you can just like let Microsoft do the job for you. Let's have a look at here. Nope, they're still not downloading. Can I try and open it? Yeah, so they're permanently downloading, so you can remove them. Hello, Black Cat. We already set up the domain controller. Oops, I didn't want to set that up. Okay, so run the Spice tools. So I can actually set a different resolution because if I remember correctly, the RSAT tools do not like low resolution. And with the the spice tools, I can set a custom resolution. Oh yeah, we finished setting up the Active Directory controller like ages ago at this point. The thing that takes the most amount of time is setting up Windows as the client. That takes the longest. Hey, we got a different size now for the video output, I think. Yay! I can set it to something else, but like this resolution is fine. And let's see. What is it called again? Yeah, users and computers. So I can run that. And here now I have my company.local users. And remember we disabled the test user, right? Well, we can unlock the account. We can add more information here. Like you have access to all the extra tools for Active Directory now. And everything is saved. And this costs you 0 money. But that's not everything. Now, if I actually reload here, because we actually added a computer now, we have a computer here. We have the virtual machine that I have added. It's in the desktop list. Or it's in the computer list. And if I go back here and I can enable the user again. Object test user has been enabled, and this test user was disabled, as you can see here. If I reload the page, it's now enabled. So yeah, that's how you set up a Active Directory controller or domain controller on Linux quite easily. You just use Zentyal. You can do it with Samba 4, but it requires a lot of configurations to set up, and this just makes it so much easier. And you can use it along with a Pi-hole, like I showed you. Just enable that conditional forwarding. And that's it. Do any of you have any questions related to this? Because I will gladly answer any questions. Oh, okay. So with my it wasn't my interview. It was my actual trainee exam, and one of the tasks there that I had to do for my exam was setting up a Active Directory server and give people remote access to programs. And what I did was that I didn't just set up a Windows server with Active Directory, I also set up a Zentyal server, back then called eBox. So I set up both those as two Active Directory servers, or domain controllers, and I had a client that I then just a Windows client that I just joined those domains with and showed them, hey, this one works, or you can use this one for like no money at all. And both of them offered remote applications. However, it was a lot nicer done on the Zentyal server because I essentially used SSH with the X forwarding to give remote access to like things like at that point OpenOffice and Firefox and like other things. And I actually got a some additional notes added to my exam that I had done it very thoroughly, because I was not only installed a Windows server with Active Directory, I also installed a Linux server with Active Directory, and this was back in, I would say, 2009, maybe 2010. If people are actually going to use the Linux server for Active Directory, though, well, that's up to the actual company. They will probably just go straight for Microsoft because they can throw money at Microsoft and just like get what what they want and expect. But if you have a small company that like isn't maybe making as much money and wouldn't be able to afford it, they will probably gladly take on the Zentyal server and use that instead. And their use case is probably not going to be more than a few group policies and some administration for accounts and maybe computers, and like that's it. Like you can dig more into the Zentyal server yourself and see what it can do, but for most cases you will just use it as a Active Directory domain controller. I can actually end off with just making a new user here. Let's see. Let's see. We can call him for oops. Bob. Yeah, Bob Bibi. And we can use that as his username, bbib. Create password 123. Super secure. And I must change password at login. Finish. So here now, if I refresh here, we now have Bob Bibi as the other user. And we can then sign out. And then we can just do sign in. Password must be changed before signing in, sure. Change password to I'm Bob. I would love to show some group policy stuff too, group policy objects and things like that, but I've actually never used that. I never had any use for it. so I've never gotten any introduction to it. Because most of the things that I had to deal with was add users and are they admin or not, and maybe map up a single drive. That is all I had to deal with. Everything else was like on the image. Yeah, that's how you set up a Active Directory server on Linux quite easily. If your network is primarily Unix systems, I would recommend setting up Open LDAP instead. And from what I know, net server with the TH has Open LDAP in a similar way as Zentyal has Active Directory. So you could use that. It runs on CentOS. I can actually show you people that because we actually used it at work at one point. Net server. I forgot it. Yeah, it's org. So netserver.org. They have Open LDAP in a similar way as Active Directory on Zentyal. So depending on if you're dealing with Unix systems on the network or Windows systems, you can use either one of these two. They're both fantastic projects. If you use Windows, if your network is primarily Windows clients, use Zentyal if you want to have a Linux server. If you're primarily dealing with Unix systems and Mac systems, use NetServer. Both of them are really good, and they offer pretty much the same things. They only differ on the domain controller part. And here's the cool thing. You can have both of them. You can have both. Because you can set NetServer to synchronize with Zentyal. Because NetServer can synchronize its Open LDAP with Active Directory, if I remember correctly. Worst case, you would just add the users in two locations. And they will have to deal with two identical logins, but like they will have to change the password independently on both of them. But I think, if I remember correctly, you can synchronize this with Active Directory, and thereby it will work with Zentyal. But I have never actually used the Open LDAP from NetServer. So that's my disclaimer. I've never used Open LDAP. But I know it's there. I never used Open LDAP though. But I've used other things from NetServer, and it's a very good project. And with that, I think I will end this stream. 1 hour to show everything. Let's see, do we have anything? Yeah, we can, yeah, SAMP access and stuff like that. The fun thing is that this domain controller is completely useless now because of our Pi-hole. However, if you actually need a more advanced DNS server, I would recommend using the server from Zentyal, and then just add your Pi-hole as a forwarder. So, depending on your use case, if you need a advanced DNS server, use Zentyal over Pi-hole, but set Pi-hole as the forwarder if you have a Pi-hole in your network. And if you do not need a advanced DNS server, use Pi-hole as the primary DNS server and use conditional forwarding to your domain controller, and that way you can have your domain working with Pi-hole. That is literally all you need to know about that. So with that, goodbye, and I will see you all later.